As of July 1st, 2023, New York had 8,631,525 housing units, but one building stands taller than most. One building grew to be the spawn point for creative talent, and that building blossomed right on the devil's doorstep. Hell's Kitchen, baby. Some titled it Broadway's bedroom, as 70% of the building's 1,689 units are occupied by performing artists. The Manhattan Plaza is subsidized housing. Subsidized housing is a government-funded program that helps low-income people be able to actually live. Now, the concept of affordability in New York is relative. Like, in an area where coffees are 15 quid, an affordable coffee would be 10 quid. That's not cheap still. But that being said, after skimming through the documentary that was made about the Manhattan Plaza, I learned that the residents of this building would pay 30% of their gross income. This was very kind to an artist's constantly fluctuating lifestyle. They could be on Broadway making decent money one week, but then maybe their show ends and they have peace of mind as their rent could still be paid, as their rent would change to reflect their work's change.
A vast majority of the apartments here are for people in the performing arts in all areas of the industry. Scene painters, ticket takers, actors. So when my income changes, so does my rent. You can't get a box in this neighborhood for under $3,000. And I'm just grateful to be sitting in Manhattan Plaza 28 years later, which is where I hope they're gonna find my body sometime.
I've known about this crazy miracle of a building for a while now, but after seeing Timotheé Chalamet mention it so much in interviews more and more, with descriptions that were, let's just say, passionately vague.
That building I grew up in is, all respectfully, super strange.
I became captivated in this so-called miracle on 42nd Street. This architectural science experiment, this high-rise society. The documentary goes through the building's genesis. It wasn't a great area and they believed the building could help improve the area. Long story short, it massively did. And a lot of the documentary is about its conception and the people behind its conception, but the bang is not necessarily what intrigues me most. It's the explosion that follows that bang. Because quite frankly, this building has an alumni that could rival Juilliard. I don't know, but I guess they made a creative arts building in Manhattan and talented creatives have since came of it. I guess it's maybe not that crazy. I'm sure if they made subsidized housing in the middle of Rio de Janeiro, where 70% of the occupants had to have children involved in football, then 25 years later, some of the best players in the world would be from that building. If you build it, they will come. I did dance with the idea that maybe the miracle of this building isn't the talents that have all came from it, but the building being allowed to be built in the first place. And that is true, and that's kind of what the documentary suggests as well. But it also feels like more than that. This building was a flame for moths in a very dark corner, but this corner also has the Muad'Dib in it, and that makes a whole lot of difference. Alicia Keys was born in there, Samuel L. Jackson was manning the door in there. I mean, the clip I saw today was this year's soon-to-be Oscar nominees Chalamet and Colman Domingo talking about how they both lived there at the same time.
And I lived in the same building.
No way.
Time, yeah.
Manhattan Plaza?
Manhattan Plaza.
No way, you live there?
9th Avenue building?
No way. Oh man.
I seriously, yeah.
Even more famous names have passed through this building, either as staff or as short-term residents. And in a way, I guess that really does speak to like a moment in time. Word of mouth and true working class creatives who congregated in a place and built their lives. And that's kind of why I predict the talents that are being squeezed out of this building will eventually dry up. From what I can find, it seems like the building has done well to dodge regentrification. At the same time, there's only so much you can do. This building was a part of improving the surrounding area, and that has happened tenfold. But I'm fascinated and inspired by this building, and I'm sure many others are too. The building is a celebrity in itself, and when you have people wanting to live in a place so badly, to have some of that magic brush off on them, it adds to it being an even higher demand. And the building had a great model even without the glamour, so that demand was going to be so high anyway. And on top of that, this building's intention was to create homes for artists who have those fluctuating working schedules. When I look at the entry requirements today, at least, the requirements are as follows. You can make a maximum of $106,920 a year to qualify for one bedroom place there. You can make a maximum of $122,175 to qualify for a two bedroom place there, and you can make a maximum of $137,430 to qualify for a three bedroom place there. So now we unfortunately have to do a bit of maths. So by the model, let's say you were making £135,000 a year and you had a three bedroom apartment there, you'd be paying 30% of your income, and 30% of that income would be $40,500 a year, which is a monthly rent of $3,375. The average rent in that area of New York is apparently $3,650 for a studio apartment. That is crazy. I don't know how buildings work, and maybe I'm just being cynical, but why is a building, if a guy is willing to pay $40,500, then why would you accept someone on even half of that? I mean, Larry David said at one point his monthly rent was $57. That was the 70s. But ChatGPT tells me that in today's money, that's about $338. Also, in that documentary, Larry David jokes while doing stand-up. It was almost like he had to do an audition to get in. They wanted genuinely talented and artistically driven people in that building. That was their number one, it felt like. Would a Larry David today be considered paying $338 a month, meaning he was making $1,127 a month and earning $13,524 a year, compared to someone else who wants a building who's making 5 times that? Thanks again, ChatGPT, for the maths help. I'm sure a lot of people with apartments there do not wish to leave and have been there since earlier. And I'm sure when they do open to applicants, it's probably more likely that's because the residents have died more so than given up their apartment. So I don't think this change is going to come into effect for a while, maybe. I'm sure that waiting list is only going to be getting longer and longer, and that competition is only going to be getting richer and richer. Especially with all that sweet verbiage Timotheé Chalamet keeps shipping out.
I grew up in like the most untethered environment, and I say that affectionately. You know, I grew up in an arts building.
But eventually, you can see how it's very plausible to me that this could eventually turn into some kind of Nepo tower, where mainly producers live on comfortable salaries, living in subsidized housing that's meant to be for low to moderate income families, because they heard a couple of Miracle on 42nd Street stories, wanted to live in that history, and quite frankly, the rent is amazing. For New York, it's relative. And that would be no longer authentic, which would be a shame, because there is so many great stories that have came out of this building, and it's a great come-up story. And you know, you don't want the high society to get a hold of this high-rise.
Very reluctant to do this tonight, because I felt that if anybody from management saw my act, I would be thrown out of the building. You're a performer? Get the fuck out of here, pal. Come on, beat it.